Tucker Carlson is the absolute worst for a number of different reasons, but his casual cruelty and dehumanizing different groups, I think deserves to be near the top of that list. I wanna show you this video. This is him talking about the unhoused, and take a look at how he talks about this community.
Yeah, so the one thing you can't do is expel the junkies, not the homeless. Homeless makes it sound like some sort of protected class of protesters. No, they're junkies. They're people shooting up, breaking into cars to support their habit, selling themselves, pimping out women. They're junkies, okay? And they're on your kid's school lawn. Well, we can't intervene in that because it's always been that way. Just lower expectations, Karen. In New York City, police have just been ordered not to intervene when they see junkies shooting up on the sidewalk or in a park. Can't get in the way, and you shouldn't, because we've always had junkies in our park. Sam Adams was actually smoking meth.
So we all have to figure out, is this better or worse or about the same as him continually pushing great replacement theory and trying to get people to ignore the threat posed by domestic terrorists and white supremacists? Is this encouraging people to not care about COVID and to get sick and die? But just casually, he is there to justify whatever hatred, whatever suspicion, whatever fear his audience has. He tells them they're right to have it. If you've ever been encouraged to have an ounce of empathy for the unhoused, get rid of that mess. No, these are just junkies. They're criminals, they're prostitutes. You don't have to have any empathy for them. And certainly we shouldn't do anything to actually help these people, JR.
Yeah, they're not humans. It's an age-old approach to things. The other and then the lesser, and that group that's out to get you, it's a complete detachment of their humanity. Now you can do whatever you want to people once their humanity doesn't exist anymore on a large scale. Now that's the problem they had with some of the police protests last summer, because there was an explicit call to stop killing specifically this certain group of people, and it kind of spreads to everyone. But the fact that they're targeted more often is the focus of that. And so we can't start having pushback from our normal narratives of those others not being human enough for us to fight for. They were more upset about the fact that people who weren't affected by this police brutality care.
Yeah.
Now, if people start caring about the homeless in general, and that encompasses all races and groups, once we start caring about them, oh my God, what are we gonna do then? Start having policies that help the unhoused? This is gonna be a problem, because then that takes some more of my hoarding of as much as I can get. And that hits every level. So I mean, I'm on those next door neighbor apps and stuff like that, and 75 to 80% of the posts are complaining about the unhoused and tell them what we should do to them. Literally one of them said, ship them off into the desert and let them stand and hang out there. What is it that they did to you? What is it exactly they did to you to make you want them to get pushed down to the next? Because what they'll say is, get them out of our neighborhood. And I responded once to one of these. I'm like, where do they go next? You send them to what neighborhood? And then does that neighborhood then go, yeah, I love it. Because each neighborhood's gonna act just like you are acting and go, get them the hell out of here. So when is the policy gonna be to actually find out and break down what is about our society that has so many unhoused people? What is about our policies and economic situations that have so many people in these situations? And do we wanna end it, or do we wanna keep complaining about it? Again, where's your action versus your desire to run on something? Because now you get, again, this is locally. Get rid of the councilman, get rid of the mayor, get rid of the governor. Because your park in your rinky-dink street on Maple has homeless folks in it, that has something to do with now Gavin Newsom is coming after you. Like, it's so
well,
but the reason they have these stupid thoughts is because they listen to things like what Tucker Carlson just said.
Exactly, and he gets them to focus on, it's sort of a theme I brought up often, which is getting people to focus on the last step of a thing. Don't think about causes for things. So you should just be mad that there's a homeless person right there, right now. I don't like that homeless person who's right there, get him away. And Tucker Carlson, if you were to look over all of his economic policies, what sort of prioritization of social spending at the state or the federal level, what kind of policies does he support? Does he support policies that will create more or less unhoused people? We know. Cause the things that you will then hate,
100%.
Make it harder to get birth control, and then outlaw the abortions that you hate. Focus at that last step. Don't ever think about the effects of what you're doing. And so let's talk about the impacts as well. They advocate the policies that create these communities. They have no empathy for those people. They train people to not see them as humans. And as JR pointed out on that app, we have millions and millions and millions of Americans that do not see them as humans. It might seem as if I'm exaggerating or whatever. They see them as something, I guess, but they don't see them as humans like you or me. And what does that produce? Well, it produces things like this. Back in 2019, and we're just finding out now because he apparently was just suspended. Brad Cox in Dallas is part of the fire rescue department, a paramedic. And there was an unhoused individual that was being accused of setting a grass fire. So they had incapacitated him. And at one point, he started to get up. And we're gonna show you this photo. The video's available. We can't show you the video. And not entirely sure if I'd want to, but let's put up the screenshot. And you'll see what Brad Cox did. He wound up and he kicked the unhoused man in the face. He was laying in the street. He tried to get up. The officer didn't hold him down. He didn't handcuff him. He wound up and kicked him in the face like some 90s gang movie of beating someone down. That's what he did. And that is not something you do to someone that you see as a human. The man was left with a black eye. Yeah, he's a paramedic. He's supposed to do no harm. Remember that? Yeah, he forgot it. The man was left with a black eye, bloody nose, multiple fractures to his face, and a swollen right ankle. Cox was cleared of any wrongdoing after an investigation by the Dallas Police Department. The homeless man was identified as Kyle Vest. He's now suing Cox and the city of Dallas. They looked into it and they had the video and they decided that's okay. That's not a problem. Because again, after all, and by the way, they allow a lot of violence against everyone. Let's be clear about that. But an unhoused person, you think a cop is gonna lose their job over that? No way, no way.
No way. That the whole idea. Again, this is in action. The thought of what you can do to someone who is not worth dignity, respect, life. So he set a grass fire. They said, right, for whatever reason.
Don't even know if it's true.
Yeah, maybe it's to keep warm, right? And it's a bad thing to do to set a grass fire because obviously you don't want to set fires. So we have wildfires out here, and many times they're caused by someone shooting off like a baby announcement, boy or girl baby announcement, and it has some flames to it, and they set a whole fire and take out an entire city. If you get to that person, do you have him on the ground and kick him in the face? If he's standing there with his wife, he's standing up with his family, because he did the same thing. He set an unnecessary fire that can destroy a lot of property and potentially kill people. It's a serious situation. It's arson. So once they do it, do you then have them on the ground and a paramedic walks up and thinks, I'm gonna kick Brian in the face because he set this fire? No, they don't do that. Now they do arrest and charge these folks, which is fine. But for some reason, this guy thinks I can attack him on the ground. And the only reason he thinks that is because of people like Tucker Carlson who continue to perpetuate this mindset that they're nothing, they're not worth it. It's a cockroach on the ground. If it gets by your feet and you don't want it to crawl up your leg, stomp on it.
Yep.
That is the equivalent approach here, and they have no problem with that.
That's what they're training people, and this might seem small. Like he talked for 15 seconds attacking the community. It's not small. Look up the stats on assaults on the unhoused, murders of the unhoused. It's insane. I just looked up in LA, and there's sexual assault in Van Nuys, a police officer, Garden Grove police officer charged with assaulting. It's constant. But this is what the show is. None of you watch Tucker Carlson, I'm sure, and I hope, but it is just training people. Hate and fear, hate and fear, hate and fear. Go down the list, every different group. That's what he's training people to found their politics on.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.